And we're live. Welcome to Bill and Ammon's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have everybody introduce themselves. Ammon, want to start?
Yeah, sure. I'm Ammon, and I'm munching on pizza, which is the perfect way to start the evening, really. Doc?
Hi, Doc Sheldon of Intrinsic Value SEO and Search News Central, and I already had my lunch, so I'm not munching on anything, which will maybe get me back to where I can actually see my belt buckle again without a mirror.
And I'm Bill Sosky. I'm the author of SEO by the Sea and the director of SEO research for Go Fish Digital. And I'm not munching on anything either, though I'm probably going to run out and get a poke bowl for lunch after the show.
Sounds good. Terry?
Let me see. I'm working too hard.
Do you still remember who you are?
Just barely. Yeah, I had another website explode on me, so. But it's the last one on that gantry platform. I'll be glad to kick it to the freaking curb. But that's what I get for not updating websites for a few years. But it's going on.
Pro tip to people out there, websites shouldn't explode. If yours explodes, there's definitely something wrong.
Yeah. We'll see. Finish her up to probably this week. I had to move the site anyhow by Saturday, so just means it's going to be up for maintenance for a few days. Right, Doc? We both had that experience.
The site that exploded?
Still having it.
Oh, yeah? Okay. I don't think it's so bad then.
Just got another one of them back live yesterday and moving on to the next.
Wow, that's quite a load. Yeah, so redeveloping pros, that's the one that kind of went by the wayside. So
yeah, I know how that goes, the by the wayside business. I think you and I were doing some work on pros, back in 2015? Getting ready to relaunch it?
Might have been 15, yeah.
That was back when you had to spit every time anybody even mentioned the word WordPress.
Yeah. I'm actually putting it back on it's going to be partially on WordPress and partially on Bootstrap. Change some things around. Back to my own programming rather than these
WordPress powers a lot of the web these days. There's no escaping it.
A third of it, roughly, yeah.
Yeah. And Bootstrap as well, because a lot of themes use Bootstrap, whether they're WordPress ones or not.
Yeah. The good WordPress themes too will leave Bootstrap alone. The bad ones start to screw with it. And so you can't use straight up Bootstrap code. You got to use their crap.
Yeah.
Pregnant pause.
Wasn't me. I had a condom. Hey, Kenneth, do you want to unmute and say hello? You kind of missed the rest of us doing it, but jump in.
It's good to be back. I hope everyone's doing well. Sorry I started late, but such is life.
It happens. You seem to have had an accident with your wallet looking in the background there.
Yeah, burning money. That's
Yeah, there's a lot of that online.
yeah, exactly.
I remember back when Amazon still hadn't made a profit, which was a large number of years, because had an incredible amount of seed capital, and it was, you know, its spend on acquisition was much higher than what it was taking in, and there were a lot of people who were convinced it was never going to make a profit. You know, they had this. I remember one of the ex-staff members wrote this big open public letter, you know, criticizing Bezos and saying the guy's got this idea that if he sells $10 bills for $5, eventually he'll sell enough of them to make a profit.
Make it up in volume.
So what is the business model of Amazon? Sell everything and make money? It seems like it.
I have to plead guilty to being one of those that thought that they were going to be a flash in the pan.
No,
They definitely made a fool out of me. Not that that's all that tough, but
back when they were still really just a bookstore,
yeah,
their customer acquisition was so. It was expensive, but it was so good. What they were particularly good at, if you made 3 purchases on Amazon ever, from then on, everything it recommended you was on your to-read list or you'd already read it. It never made a bad recommendation. And that power meant it was always going to win, because they could decide to stop buying new customers at any point they wanted. They were just trying to accelerate it, but they didn't have to do it. There already enough resale to do it the slow way.
And they still do a pretty good job of recommending books I want to read.
Yep, they do.
Yeah. Yeah. They've never quite got to be as good with movies, which is a bit of a shame. But I suppose people's tastes in movies can be a lot more varied, and therefore it's giving them noisier data. But you would have thought that they would have put the time in to get that right.
It's probably harder to get right. I would imagine it's like you said. Like I have very varied tastes in movies.
Well, yeah,
and where it takes the patience to sit down with a book and stick with it and enjoy it for the couple nights it might take to read it, I'm a lot more demanding.
But
I'll waste a couple hours of eyesight. I wasted a couple of hours last night on an atrocious movie on Netflix that I would never do that with a book, especially if I actually had to, you know, lay out a $20 bill to buy the book.
Yeah, yeah. But that's I think the thing is that you've got to not do it just on, you know, people who watched this also watched that and that. What you've got to look at is people who've got it in their collections, people who have bought it, maybe, but mostly when it comes to things like, you know, Amazon Prime and Netflix, people have got a list and they've got favorites, and that's where you should be looking for that extra level. And if that data isn't good enough, come up with an even better one.
Yeah, I've wondered too, when you go and you look at a book, you know, it lets you read, you know, like the first chapter or so. I wonder if they look at how much, you know, if maybe they're going to offer you a preview of 20 pages. If you only read 2 pages and then back out of there, or you go ahead and read the whole preview, I would think that would yield some valuable information to them as to whether or not that topic is of real interest to you.
Yeah.
I think you're right. The abandonment, just like a cart.
Because I have opened up a few of those and got a paragraph and a half in and said, I don't think so, you know. But sometimes I'll actually read through the whole preview and then buy the book.
Yeah.
I use the site Goodreads.
Oh yeah.
Amazon looks at that, looks at what I've listed as having read and what I've rated.
Yeah.
And use information, I'm presuming, from there too.
Yeah, Goodreads is a very useful site. It came along at just the right time because it came along. You remember years ago I worked with a consumer opinions website called Do You?
Yeah.
And just as that got closed down, and all of their literary reviewers were kind of not earning money anymore, Goodreads came along, and a lot of them went there just to keep doing it. And so they had, a whole load of experienced reviewers suddenly join them early on, and it really helped them out.
Did you ever meet Ramanathan Guha from Do You? I believe he worked there before he joined Google.
It sounds familiar, yeah. The dev team kind of it was very interesting. They intended to employ a lot of devs, but they ended up having to get a lot of contractors.
Yeah.
But we didn't meet them that much because because they were contractors, they were expected to work hard in their little cubicles every hour that there was going, and B, they kind of killed the company for everybody else because that was the bridge too far. Was that the owners of the company decided they needed this next generation platform. They got a third round of investment of I think altogether there was 30 million euros had been invested, and they sank it all into this very expensive new platform, custom built, and it never got finished. They ran out of money, and the investors stepped in and kicked the entire board out, and yeah, never got finished.
The 30 million euros, I'm surprised they didn't kick them out the window.
Employees of the UK operation, and when I went in, they were over 50.
That's the kind of path no investor cares to take.
Yeah.
You know, a good thing about the Goodreads is I was able to use that for some reputation management where I had a client that had an issue, and he was also an author, so the Goodreads had enough authority to be one of the targets to push the bad one down. So that's a pretty good site.
I like that they have author pages on Amazon too. I'm not sure if those show up in search results, but
they do, and that was another one. So that was two of the negative was number 2, and just Goodreads and Amazon got me 2 spots right off the bat with author pages.
Nice. You can see some other sources like a LinkedIn page, a Facebook page.
Those tend to work. The LinkedIn profile, Facebook profiles are working really good for reputation management right now.
Yeah.
News sites, I leverage a lot of news sites, and those do very well unless you're competing against another news site, and it gets kind of a little bit iffy there. But really good in the reputation side of it is all of those are just great resources to get you a fast bump.
If it's authors of actual, best-selling books rather than very niche business topics, things like the New York Times used to have, permanent bios of quite a few of the writers of note, and that used to be really good if they were, a genuine somebody in the literary world. But of course, if it was, just a few business books that they bought their way to the bestsellers, yeah, that wasn't going to work for them.
I can see using Literary Times.
Yeah.
Review or profile too.
Yep.
Some of those literary magazines are dying off.
Yeah.
Like Village Voice in New York City closed down after, I don't know, 40, 50 years of publication.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a real shame. I mean, Kindle has a different kind of market that doesn't tend to be, people tend to read the reviews on Amazon rather than anywhere else, which kind of shuts down the funding for other kinds of reviewers. You've still got some of the newspapers, keeping up with the literary arts, but overall, it does seem like the market has been shrinking for a lot of these companies.
Right. I used to enjoy reading the books section of my Sunday newspaper. I don't read the Sunday paper anymore. I'm not sure if it's because the quality of the paper's gone down where I live now, or I don't know. Can't remember the last time I actually bought a Sunday paper.
Nor I.
I noticed I was out this last Sunday morning driving around, and there were people standing on street corners in my town selling the San Diego, was it Union Times?
Union Tribune, wasn't it?
Union Tribune, yeah. I hadn't noticed them doing that before. This was the first morning. And they had lots of copies out there.
Yeah. It does feel like a lot of the print industry has gone harder into advertising. It does seem like a lot of the quality of the actual publications has gone down to try and fit more ads in. Ads where they stack them high and sell them cheap.
Well, when I was in tab printing, the rule of thumb used to be 15 to 20% ad space, okay? And over a period of about 5 years, and this is back in the mid-'80s to early 90s, over a period of 5-6 years, it went to 50%.
Yeah. Just
to break even, okay?
Yeah.
And now, if you include, like, for instance, we just had a weekly paper, but our competition in Austin had a daily and a Sunday edition. Of course, the Sunday edition would run 120, 140 pages, whereas the weekly would run, the weekdays normally run about 50 or 60 pages. In that Sunday edition, they'd have another 60 pages of inserts.
Yeah.
Color glossy inserts from various supermarkets and clothing outlets and toy stores, and 50 or 60 pages just in inserts. And that's in addition to running, and the Austin Statesman always ran a high percentage. They ran 55 to 60% ads. So I think there's a subconscious turnoff too, when rather than just opening the page and scanning the start points to see if there's any articles on this page that are interesting to you, when you got to see if there's any articles on this page.
Yeah.
Period.
Google's going that route.
Mm-hmm.
I think even worse is that, there was a time when you picked up your paper and, carried your paper. And then there was a time when you picked up your paper and lots of these inserts started to fall out.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. And now I go to a coffee house for a cup of coffee in the morning and a pastry or some other breakfast, and I bring my phone and I read the news on that.
There you go. Well, I know we had a subscription back in the late 90s, I guess, in Long Beach. We had a subscription weekly, or a daily subscription to the newspaper at the house. And it just, sometimes I'd look around, there'd be 3 or 4 days piled up still on the kitchen table that hadn't even been looked at yet. So I cut it. And my wife said, no, I want to at least keep the Sunday. Okay, so we kept the Sunday. I walked in one day and she's going through and she pulls all the inserts out and then folds the rest of the paper up and drops it in the trash can. Didn't even bother to open it. All she was after was the coupons.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That is a market of its own. I mean, there are newspapers that are pretty much all about those coupons because they know that's what sells the papers.
Yep.
I went to a convenience store and was going to buy a Sunday paper, and the guy in front of me said, "You can have mine just as long as I get these advertisements out of the center." And he pulled them out and handed me the paper and said, paid for it, handed me the paper and said, "There you go." And that's what I was looking for anyway. So,
yeah.
I had it great being a dinosaur.
But of course, this does all tie into, one of the really important parts of internet marketing, which is user experience. The user experience of newspapers changed. They didn't adapt to the new market except by just throwing in more and more of the stuff people tolerated until it got to the point where people weren't prepared to tolerate it anymore.
So I had read about some Eastern European papers that picked up lots of new subscribers because they redesigned the papers to make them more graphic, to include larger maps, bigger pictures, and more interesting layouts. And the circulations of those papers climbed. During this age of the internet, people started reading the paper more because the paper was more interesting. And I think there is value to paper. If there are things you can do with the newspaper that you can't do with the web, like you can include recipes in the newspaper. You can include sporting score sheets with the newspaper that you can't put in a web page. Paper still has some value. You can write on it. They need to take advantage of some of those things that make paper unique.
Well, that's the thing. They got to get out of the box that they've been thinking in for decades and, start a whole new thought process. And there seems to be a lot of resistance to that. Yeah, I agree that there is potential, but they got to take on a whole new way of thinking about their readers.
Right. The Washington Post started putting posters on the backs of some newspaper pages, sporting posters, football stars and so on. And people were buying those because they wanted the posters.
Yeah. And taking that straight out of the magazine industry.
Right.
Yeah, pinups.
Yep.
Kept me from having to repaint my bedroom for probably 15 years. When the paint started to flake, just get Miss July and cover it up.
I think the idea was always that, print was going to have better quality. But I think there was an arrogance where they assumed they already had it. Instead of actually going about focusing on quality and upping their quality, they just decided that they had it and that, everything online was just amateur bloggers. And that, the audience will know the difference. Yeah, well, do you know what? The audience did know the difference. They knew that it was online for free and it wasn't enough different in your newspaper to be worth paying for.
There's a legal blogger named Andrew Sullivan who was informed one day that his blog had more links to it than the New York Times did.
Mm-hmm.
So one day he posted a link to a New York Times story with a little note next to it saying, "I hear they need the links."
Love it. You know, I think there's another aspect to it too, and that, you know, from the personal aspect. Your journalists that wrote for newspapers and even a lot of the big magazines, I think an awful lot of them, with the advent of the internet, were a bit resentful that all these years and still they're having to deal with some editor with a blue pencil that's chopping up their piece, whereas all these people are putting up a blog and able to say, quite often very poorly, anything that they wanted to. And I think that has probably, you know, I think we've all perceived a real drop in the level of writing ability and professionalism among professional journalists. And I think a lot of them, they're looking for some place where they can say what they want to say the way they want to say it, rather than having somebody upstairs change it.
There's a blogger on security called Bruce Schneier.
Oh, yeah.
Who writes. He's a tremendous writer.
He
writes
is.
books, and his blog is about security, except Fridays, where he has a squid post. He writes about squids, and he has an open comment theme on Fridays too, where you can write about any security issue that you have questions on. He'll answer them in the squid post.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different approach, but it works.
Exactly. It's much more about the community aspect. It's an interactive experience, and that's what the newspapers didn't get. They were used to the days of command and control, the days of broadcast, the days of we have the microphone and we know better than you what you want. And actually the audience didn't believe them and didn't agree with them. The great thing about, you know, a centralized internet writing place is that it can adjust what you get to your tastes. There's more than a few sites which have multiple topics where you can select which topics you want to be front and center.
Mm-hmm. People do still refer to bloggers as social networking because some of them do actually interact with the readers.
Mm-hmm. And to an extent, I mean, journalists have tried to catch up with that. Most journalists, at least here, have Twitter accounts. The TV news, you know, keeps up with what's happening on Twitter and responds to Twitter comments and encourages people to tweet so that they can try and be more interactive. But it took them a long time to learn that lesson.
I believe I've seen the BBC with requests on their pages for people who see something newsworthy, take pictures of it, and send them into them.
Yeah.
Yep, they do. And they get quite a lot of submissions. Some of them are, I'm sure, trash, but... And, you know, in contrast, you know, your traditional journalism, you know, print journalism, a newspaper had only two ways of knowing whether they were hitting the mark. They either got letters to the editor, which were pretty few and far between, or their distribution went up or down. That's basically the only feedback they could draw on to see how they were doing.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny you talk about the pictures, but I'm releasing an app that's in beta right now, which is it's like an Uber app, but it's for photography, so that I can request for a specific picture from a certain place and time, and I pay for that picture, and the transaction is done via the app. And I'm doing that because I'm tired of stock photos. Because when you build a website, everybody uses almost the same photos because of the stock photos. So this app, which will be released in the next month, you can actually say, hey, I want a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, but I want it during sunset from the West Point, and I'll give you $20. And when they send the submissions over, I can view them and approve which one I want, and they get paid for the picture.
I have seen something like that, Ken, some years back. I wish I could remember where in the world it was, but I'm pretty sure it was a photography-related site where you could actually tell them, I need a picture of the Eiffel Tower at dawn. I need a picture of Champs-Élysées in the evening, something like that. And from across the world, you get a half a dozen people to send it to you. I don't recall how they handled the pricing on it, but
this is basically the market dictates the price. So, example, if there's a catastrophe or something, and a newspaper per se wants a picture of that, they could say, "I'll give hundreds of dollars for that photo." And then supply and demand, and then in the app, I have it where it gives the digital release. So it releases the rights to the picture to the new owners. It's pretty neat.
That sounds like a pretty interesting model. That I can see that taken off.
Well, I did it mainly so that I can just, with some of our social media marketing clients, I can have representatives anywhere in the world basically by using the app, and then I can take pictures, have them write a few comments about the picture, pay them a few bucks, and then I can post it on their behalf.
Slick idea.
So we'll see. Like anything, a lot of time and energy. We'll see if it pays off.
Yeah. Be an interesting one to see what can be done with PR stunts as well. I mean, that's one. If you ever need the publicity badly, you can, stage a fake story of the guy who outsourced getting pictures of some women's locker room.
Right.
And the mainstream media would pick that up and eat it like candy, thinking they were hurting you, and instead they're advertising you like crazy.
That's a good idea.
Because they did try to do that with a lot of online publications in the past. I remember them, digging into things like the Huffington Post and digging into WikiLeaks and, belittling them. And instead, they were just advertising them. It's a twist on the old thing, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
I remember a guy named Borker that might argue that, eh, Terry?
Yep, for sure.
He thought that was the case. Like Google, his name became a verb. Well, anybody interested in ranting on a new topic?
Yeah, you got one?
I do, as a matter of fact. I got the second or third email from Microsoft about they're closing down Skype 7, the classic, forcing as of November 1st, the third go-round now, they've postponed it a couple times because of public uproar, forcing Skype 8 because Skype 7 as of 1 November will no longer be supported on their servers. So we're going to lose a lot of the things that, not just the aesthetics and the intuitiveness, but a lot of the important functions that Skype has always had. So I'm in the process of going through and compiling a list of the alternatives and seeing which ones, or the pricing and the features, will make a replacement. So once again, Microsoft has bought something and dedicated a massive team to fucking it up.
Yeah. Well, definitely to your list, Doc, add somewhere near the top Discord.
I've got it on the list already.
Yep, absolutely. It's a fantastic live chat application, supports multi-users. It uses few enough resources that the live stream gamers use it a lot. It's better than Skype in every regard except for adoption. But because you can access it through a web app, it doesn't matter if somebody's downloaded it or not.
And they have video recording, as I recall. Don't they?
I think Discord is in itself only chat because it tends to be used by the streamers as a sideline for their streaming. It has bots though that can tie into quite a lot of these streaming apps.
Yeah, I've been using Zoom quite a bit when I needed a video, like if I'm doing instructional videos for a client. And I like Zoom for that purpose, but it's not nearly as convenient as just having a numerous Skype windows up. And the numerous, by the way, is going away now. You won't be able to have more than one window up with Skype 8. But
that's the same mistake they kind of made with Windows 8, and you would have thought they learned, because the big criticism was Windows suddenly became window.
Yeah.
The entire point of Windows was the ability to have lots of things open at a time, and then they went with the tablet view on PCs and laptops, which no, even on a tablet, a lot of people want two screens. Smartphone, sure, it's a small screen, one window's fine. But you would have thought that Microsoft would have learned its lesson from being spanked really hard over Windows 8.
I don't think Microsoft has learning lessons in their vocabulary. Because
they teach lessons.
They've screwed up so many things in their own park for so many years. I just don't see them. That's not in their repertoire. Another feature that they're taking away, which I think is really screwy. Now you can't disable notifications if there's a chat that somebody is going on and on and on, and you're trying to get something done. You want to turn off notifications for that chat. Now you can turn off all notifications. Period.
Yeah.
So if somebody tries to call you on your Skype number and you're being pestered by this chat window over here, so you turn off notifications, you're not going to get that call.
Yeah.
Yeah. These guys, I tell you, I even sent them a nasty gram on Facebook. Fuck it. It's just discouraging as hell when somebody goes so much out of their way to totally ignore their user base and make a platform essentially unusable.
It's going to be a godsend for Facebook.
Well, it's going to be a godsend for somebody. And damn sure not going to be for them.
It has the groups. Facebook is a natural, safe fallback for a lot of people because everyone's already got an account there.
Yeah.
I think Facebook will be the big winner out of it. But hopefully some of the smaller apps will gain some. I must admit, for one-to-one, I think WhatsApp is fantastic.
Well, for a phone, yeah. Unfortunately, there's nothing that you can do on a desktop with WhatsApp.
What about Slack? Have you guys used? Do you use Slack any?
I do. I don't. Do they have a video capability?
They do.
And recording as well?
I'd have to check on the recording side of it. I usually tie in a different program to record it. But I use Slack a lot because I can just give a specific channel to a client, and then I can have it monitored by our team. It just makes it kind of easy, and you can share a screen and normal video stuff as well. And there's the apps and stuff like that. But the same as you said, if I turn off those notifications, I lose all notifications.
Yeah.
Not just not just the calls, but even the chimes.
It's things like this where I really see Twitter's limitations because this is the kind of thing. If I were involved in marketing at Twitter, this is the kind of thing I would be all over. I'd be pointing out to them that Skype is about to hit this huge wall. And guess what? We've already got a lot of these people with accounts. If we can just get in a video connection on Twitter that supports multiple users, we're golden.
Well, there's people have been screaming for several years to Twitter too, to give them the ability to basically freeze a tweet at the top of their whether they're using Hootsuite or back in the day TweetDeck, so that you can keep that thread and not lose it. So you can come back in an hour and see what's been said on that particular thread, and they won't do that. And that would be a major plug for them.
Right. Facebook does it. I don't see why they wouldn't copy suit.
Exactly. You can't pin a thread.
No, what you'd have to do instead, and I mean you still can, is come up with a unique tag.
Oh yeah, then you got to do, if you pull up that hash mark basically.
Yeah.
And but that's a pain in the butt. You got to be sure that everybody puts that hashtag in their responses and retweets and whatnot. And trust me, they don't.
If it's threaded, no, you shouldn't. As long as you can find the start of the thread through the hashtag, you're golden.
Well, if they're doing a retweet or a reply, yeah. Yeah.
Well, if they're not, they're not trying to get noticed. Ignore the bastards.
Yeah.
Dude, if you can't work out how to reply to me on Twitter, I'm not interested in your opinion.
If you can't figure this out, you're probably not bright enough to listen to, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, it just seems like there's some real myopic marketers at some of these groups.
Yeah. But it always has seemed to me that Twitter, they've got their own idea, and then they're not very reactive to what's going on, and they're definitely not proactive to what's out there. They've got their plan and they stick to their plan. And unfortunately, their plan was made a couple of years ago and may not still be in date.
And judging by results, their plan wasn't all that hot.
No. I mean, don't get me wrong, Twitter is still very useful. And it is very much for that, what's happening right now. Nothing beats Twitter for that, getting that finger on the pulse feeling. What's happening right now? What are people going on about right now? Nothing beats it. Facebook has too much personalization. It's kind of, what's my best friend ranting on about? Oh, he's talking about something that happened in the 70s. That's not because that's a trending topic. It's because it's your buddy.
The last time I sat through an earthquake, I couldn't resist the urge to tweet about it.
Yep.
And it was right there, right then, real time.
Yeah. I remember a report by the one of the commissions of emergency services that said that actually evacuation times were going up because people were pausing to tweet about it or take even selfies of themselves evacuating before evacuating.
Get that last shot as the building falls on me.
Yeah. But yeah, with tweets and Instagram and the rest of it, people were stopping to quickly notify their followers that they were having to evacuate instead of just evacuating them and then letting them know they had evacuated.
And it was a San Diego Emergency Management Services agency that contacted me, asked me to be a contact for them to retweet their emergency notifications.
Cool.
Yeah. So
sometimes I know I'm old because I see some of the things that people do and I just, what the hell? I remember the days when you went into a restaurant to eat, not to take pictures of the food. I'm sorry, if you're taking pictures of this, it isn't good enough. If you can resist that long.
Well, there was also a time when if a girl wanted to get a picture of herself looking glamorous, a duck face was probably not high on her list.
No.
Now it's just about the only kind of pictures you can find in the selfies.
Yeah. And I'm never sure that duck face is quite the right term for it. Half the time they look like fish faces. Some of that sucking in of the cheeks, goodness knows what they think they're doing, but so it doesn't look like you're posing for a picture and looking glamorous. It looks like you've just eaten a really bitter sweet. That's the wrong kind of pucker.
Exactly.
Yeah. And of course, you as a marketer, you sometimes look at that and think, does this mean that, you know, I am not as in touch anymore? Am I not going to be able to predict how to market as much to people of this generation?
Mm-hmm.
To which my first response is, God, I hope so.
There might be an element to that.
Shortly followed by, get off my lawn.
Yes. With that telltale.
There you go.
Yep. There's no parting gift like buckshot.
Well, I can say from personal experience that rock salt is pretty convincing too.
And it hurts too.
It like hell. In fact, I had the same gal's father got me twice over a period of about 3 months with rock salt. And I'm pretty sure the second time he was aiming for my head because he got me high in the back. Finally decided I just needed to find a new girlfriend.
Yeah. Oh, she was obviously pretty hot for you to get shot multiple times over, but
well, at that age, I was pretty sure I was smarter than him, and he wouldn't catch me twice. Right. Obviously, my judgment wasn't fully developed yet.
No.
I'd underestimated him drastically.
It's like that scene from Fried Green Tomatoes at the Whistle Stop Cafe, you know. Face it, I'm older and I've got more insurance. Face it, I'm older and I've got more patience.
The one I like is that the experience and treachery that comes with age will trump youthful exuberance every time.
Yes. Yeah. Youth does tend to sort of go in headlong, believing it will come out all right in the end. Whereas age has seen enough times where it hasn't come out all right in the end to know a hell of a lot better.
Mm.
Yeah, there's no sneaky like old sneaky. But I do find that there's a common sense approach to marketing that tends to still come from the older generation. I find a lot of the newer generation, they don't know how to bottle things down. Because they are used to just everything being stream of consciousness. First thought that pops into your head goes out there. The ability to write quality does seem to be lacking a lot of the time. They go for volume rather than quality.
You know, at our content agency, we've got about a dozen gals, I guess, right now, a little bit short of a dozen. And most of them are in their early to mid-30s. And it's amazing. You know, obviously we had to go through and cull some when we first started out. But the majority of these gals they don't require any editing. It may be a piece of punctuation that they just missed, but it's not because they don't know, and not because they don't care. They really work hard, and they rail about some of the quality of some of the writing that they see on the internet.
Yes.
And these are, to me, they're kids. I mean, they're like, 32, 33 years old, that they really value the quality of their work. And they really can't understand how somebody would go out and put up 1,000 words of garbage as opposed to 400 words of quality writing. And that's kind of encouraging, and I see that amongst other people, that they don't work for us. There seems to be an awful lot of younger writers that really do recognize the quality of writing has gone down and the value of having, quality and, all the good precepts around what makes quality. And it's just kind of encouraging.
Yes, although there are, of course, the famous examples of the people that just, if you produce garbage but you produce enough of it, you're kind of getting close to the infinite monkeys, infinite typewriters coming up with the works of Shakespeare. There are people like Neil Patel who think if they just have enough ghostwriters producing enough stuff, something good must come out every week.
Damn it, I thought I was going to get to mention him this week.
But he is the exact opposite of that kind of thing, where the attention to quality of writing has been thrown away quite deliberately. It's all about the volume.
Yep.
So the longer your article is, the more value it has, even though it's still all garbage.
There's an awful lot of people that describe that theory.
Yeah, Neil does, I think.
It does seem like there are a lot of these that play the numbers game. If you put enough out there, some of it will hit. But they miss the entire point of building an audience. My approach is completely the opposite, where I never want to produce anything bad. Mm-hmm. Because for me, if I read 3 pieces of crap by somebody, if I've wasted my time 3 times on this person, I'm not going to read anything else they do.
Yep, their history.
And it doesn't matter if they've produced 100 good pieces. If 3 of those were a complete waste of my time, I can no longer depend on them to be good quality.
Exactly.
I've got other things to read where I know I'm going to get good quality. And I think too many miss that. They think that it's all about getting X number of views a week, and they forget how many long-term users they're losing. It's the opposite of what we were saying about Amazon. Amazon, it didn't matter what they were spending on attracting people because they knew they could keep them.
Mm-hmm. And there are some people who write SEO articles who write and include some intelligent, thoughtful content that helps, that makes sense. And then we'll add to it something like use LSI keywords. It's like, why?
Oh, and why don't let your keyword density exceed.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you see all these ultimate guide posts, for instance, and they'll mention 18 things. And we all know that there's at least 24 or 36 things, but they've only mentioned 18. But that is much more forgivable if those 18 are valid.
The definitive guide to rank brain that tells you that you can optimize pages for rank brain content by doing things like adding clauses in parentheses to the end of your title so that more people click on your title to get to your page. That helps improve how you rank for rank brain things.
I know. You really got carried away.
And people ask me why I drink.
Two of the famous figures in SEO who are famous for getting things wrong consistently, Larry Kim and Neil Patel, came up with the thing that rank brain was about click-through data, which of course it isn't. It uses it, yes, but it isn't about it, and it isn't about ranking pages. It's about ranking algorithms. The closest way of looking at rank brain is what it does is it looks at the query and it tries to work out which algorithm will best fit it.
Mhm.
It tries to best understand the context of the words in the query,
Yeah.
what you meant when you wrote something as a searcher, and provide the best results based upon what you were searching for, the meaning of what you intended when you were searching. It has nothing to do with ranking content on specific pages.
It doesn't even see the damn pages.
Yeah, exactly. Rank Brain isn't looking at that end of things at all. And, I keep on writing again and again that, click-through data, the search engines do not use it the way that these idiots keep telling you they do. There is no part of the algorithm I've ever seen or been able to find in any of my tests which affect a single site. It's used as a quality metric for an entire set of algorithms, which is sometimes a subset. It can be, service in city level algorithms, but that's what they're measuring is did this change produce a better or worse overall experience for users? Did they get what they wanted faster? And that means less clicks overall. And I've tried to point out to people that there can be times when actually the best site going down in rankings may help that.
Yeah, seasonal things especially.
Mm-hmm.
Well, even then, if the first result is the authoritative one and it's spot on, it's still the first result. You don't know it's authoritative yet. You haven't been able to compare it to anything. You've still got to go and click another couple to verify that. And what they may find is that if the first one hints at something similar, and this quality one is the second one, and it's now reinforcing something they've already heard rather than being the first time they've heard it, it's convincing. Whereas when it's on its own, it takes 2 or 3 of the less convincing ones to reinforce it, because it was the may downgrade the high quality site into the third position because it gives better overall results for the query.
Yeah, and also the people that talked about that, Ammon, I don't think they really took into account query deserves freshness. Which,
Say again, Terry, query the what?
Query deserves freshness. If all of a sudden a whole bunch of people start searching on the same thing, it will change the search so that those things rise. Only temporarily, as long as people keep clicking those links. And that's local for some time. We're saying that, you can click your link and make it rise. Yeah, it rises for about as long as you keep clicking the links.
Yep.
Take a little bit of a tangent on. Go ahead.
Some of those, it's actually that it's playing with the recognition system that detects when something should become query demands freshness. In other words, what you're doing is you're simulating burstiness, which tells the engine something new is happening here, and therefore it looks for fresh results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as long as it seems to keep bursting, it keeps looking for fresh results. And as long as yours was still the last one written, yours is still the freshest.
Yeah, all that stuff happened after when Michael Jackson died and Google decided that they should be able to put stuff in almost immediately if there's a burst of, like you said, a burst of searches. And that's a perfect example. That never happened again.
The first time I really saw it, Terry, and I saw it big time, was Hurricane Katrina. A week before that, if you searched for Katrina, it was pop stars and movie stars. Katrina and the Waves, the pop group, was very highly ranked. The day after Hurricane Katrina, you put in Katrina, everything was about the hurricane. and that was the first time I'd seen the SERPs change overnight.
Right. That would be after the Michael Jackson died, right?
I couldn't tell you.
Oh, okay. Because
I could, but I'd have to Google it.
Specifically, Ammon, because when Michael Jackson died, TMZ beat Google to getting it on the web first, and Google said that will never happen again, and boom, we get this change. And now that can't happen. Very seldom do you see a website that can get news onto Google quicker than Google can pick it up itself. They didn't like getting scooped by TMZ on Jackson. That's what the main thing was.
You know, taking off on a little bit of a tangent, I've had a question about SERPs. You see a lot of people complaining that Google is working toward being able to answer all queries in the SERP and how much traffic they're going to lose to their sites because of this. And I just don't see that being a major concern.
Well, it's been proven the exact opposite, actually, Doc. This is how crazy it is.
I know it. And it's also... And it's counterproductive from their standpoint too, because you know it's not to Google's advantage to keep us in the SERPs for the majority of queries. You know, from a user standpoint, it's great. If I want to know the current time in London, I love seeing it pop right up at the top of the SERPs. I want to know the temperature in Peoria. I love that it pops right up there. I don't have to click through to find it, and I don't have to find some chart to track down Peoria. But Google gets no feedback on the quality of that SERP. You know, they're having to assume that if I ask for the current time in London and it shows me the current time in London, they have to assume I'm satisfied. But if my query is a little bit less specific and they give me a knowledge box, they don't know if that knowledge box satisfied me or not. There's no way for them to get that feedback, other than the fact that maybe I don't do a second search, okay?
If you do nothing, they know that they gave you what you wanted, or you would have kept searching.
Or gone to Bing, or you know, any number of other things. So they don't really know. They're guessing that they're hoping that I'm satisfied because I didn't make another search.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm entirely with that. I think if Google could keep you on the SERP for long enough for you to click out to an ad, they'd be very happy. There's a series, you can catch it on Netflix, called Red Dwarf. Fantastic comedy sci-fi series. Definitely watch that. Look for the episode of the Talkie Toaster. If Google could create AdWords as a talkie toaster, yeah, they would.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the time in London is this. Hey, would you like some toast now? How about some delicious crumpets? If they could serve you ads the minute they had satisfied your query, yeah, they'd love to do that.
Google is also showing people also ask type questions to get you to continue to click through search results after you've found an answer to something. So after you ask what time it is in London, they might ask. People also ask what the temperature in London is.
Or would you like some toast?
Or would you like some would you like,
how about a muffin?
Would you like jam with that toast? What type of jam would you like? Yes.
Yeah.
You know, when you're talking about the click-through rates, I've had some clients in the fishing charter industry, and when we got his, you know, we bumped up his ads in order to get his, you know, at the high, you know, average ad position of 1 or 1.5. He literally complained and said, I don't want to be the first one, because they click on 2, if not 3, price checking, and they normally, and most of the prices are the same, and they go with the third. So if I'm third in that, on the listing of ads, when they click through the ads, then they'll actually use my business. But if I'm first, I spend the money on the click, but I don't get the client, or don't get the trip booked.
Yeah, that's why I don't listen to clients.
Yeah, actually, they can be quite right there.
I can see some validity in that.
Too. I mean, years ago, I did
no way of knowing that.
In all fairness, I don't like this top position anyway. I mean, I stay away from that. I try to keep a good balance, especially when it's sensitive budget. But you know, their perception is interesting.
If there's a local pack, I want to be in that. If there's no local pack, I want to be number 1.
If the top result is an informational result and you're the second result and you're a transactional result, your conversions may go up because you may be in the exact right place to be.
Yeah.
And that's what they were saying.
Years ago, I did some testing, and when you had multiple vendors with similar products, similar prices, you know, any mature market, position 7 in the SERP was where you wanted to be. That was where that most conversions tended to happen. Because not only would they click several results, and it was usually about a third or fourth one they would convert on, but they'd also skip a few results, and it just tended to be only by 1 or 2%. But position 7 was the one that actually got the most conversions. Believe me, that test took a long time to set up. It was a 100,000-page site. But yeah, you know, when I tested it, that was the one. Would I aim to be number 7 specifically? No. And if I'm number 1, what I'd do is I'd change my pitch. If you end up number 1, you change to what they call the poison pitch. Oh yeah, you know how everyone else is going to sell it because you were selling it the same way. Point out the holes in that. Now you're the guy who told them the truth. You're the guy who predicted what everyone else was going to bullshit them with. They will come back to you for that. Yeah, they'll look at you, they'll click away, and then they'll see exactly what you told them they were going to see, and they'll be back.
Yeah.
It's called the poison pitch. Right. That's how you convert from number 1.
And that's how we handled the fishing charter ones, because the price, when they include the price, some of them include bait, some of them include license, some of them include, you know, other gear, and some of them don't. So that's what they do. They come and then they leave and then they come back.
Yeah.
Once you said, hey, this is all inclusive, and you'll notice when you check the prices that the others are not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we are pretty much at time for this week, so I think we'll have to start wrapping it up. Bill, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So we may not have a Bill Naiman's Bogus Hangout next week because I'm going to be visiting Naiman, and we're going to have a in-person hangout.
Yeah. Yeah, despite Doc suggesting that, you know, we spend all our time hanging out on video, we thought hanging out in a pub might be a little bit more fun.
Actually, I could go along with that idea.
Yeah.
In fact, I guarantee if I had an updated passport and a pocket change, we would be at a pub.
Yeah, well, get the passport in order before April, Doc, and somebody will send you an invite to come over to Brighton, I guarantee it.
I think I need to head down Doc's way sometime. I have a passport which lets me come back. That's good.
I keep hearing you say that, but I haven't seen you darken our door yet, buddy.
Huh?
Tell you, we'll have tacos and beer when you get here.
We can do.
That sounds like a good deal to me. You have the tacos, Doc, and I'll have the beer.
You guarantee fresh dog, Doc?
Say again?
You guarantee fresh dog?
The dogs in the neighborhood are getting a little picked over, but there's a guy down the street that's got a half a dozen cats. Do you like Chinese food?
Anyway, I think that's us for this week. Hopefully, if we don't catch you next week, we will catch you the week after. And Bill will be able to regale you with tales of wet weather and warm beer.
I'm looking forward to it. All right. Thank you all. Take care now.
Bye all.
Bye.